We're gonna do that regardless.
Even if there's not horses, you should put horse armor up there.
The jokes we tell
sits on the
about
ground.
That's right. It just sits on the ground. It'd be so great.
Another common question throughout, the 1,000+ questions was crafting. Are you going to be able to craft spells, potions, and other items?
We do have a lot of crafting. We do have crafting within each discipline now. So we do have smithing. Enchanting is back as a skill. And then alchemy, we're sort of treating as it doesn't matter that much anymore, but it is in our stealth category. Though we have sort of a blended skill list. So alchemy is like the most magical of the stealth skills. And then we have lots of other things you can that are not skill-based that you can craft, that we're messing with from cooking and things like that. That's something else we're gonna talk more about later. That's all in the game now, and it's going to go through a few changes. So I don't want to get too specific, but there is a lot of that and more emphasis on it this time around.
You know, I know one thing, that when I was down to see you guys at the studio, that you were still kind of exploring what was stuff related to how spells would interact with each other and that kind of thing. And I would suspect that the results of your experimentation on that stuff would affect whether you have anything that's like spell crafting, right?
Yeah, spell crafting is kind of it's a real wild card, something that we've done a lot, and there are pluses and minuses to it. We'd like to we have some ideas that we really like on how to solve that, and I don't know where that's going to go. But the thing that we don't like about the previous systems that we've done is it becomes very spreadsheety, where it takes the magic out of magic, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So, I mean, you got to see the game, but your listeners haven't. But there's a bigger emphasis on how the magic physically acts. Okay, so just a spell like fire. There are different spells for how the fire moves, like putting it down like a rune that explodes when you walk over it, or fire you can spray that lingers in the ground like you're spraying a wall, and you can spray the ceilings and it's there, or fire that travels like a flamethrower out of your hands, or a fireball that you charge up and throw and explodes at a distance. So, our main goal is to make magic feel like this arcane, powerful thing. And once it goes into a spreadsheet in the game, where you can just say, I want something at this distance and this power, it removes the illusion of like how this stuff actually works. And so we have some ideas of ways around that, but we don't know where those are going to go yet. We do have the benefit of we're really, really happy with how the magic plays in the game, both visually and mechanically, and then being able to do it with both hands, that there are opportunities there for combinations and things you can do without getting into the spreadsheet aspect of it, which I do know some people like, but it does take away from the impact of the spells that you're finding and mechanically how they work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it actually ties back to something you were talking about earlier, which was, you've got, like, within the one-handed skill tree, you've got these different perks for, like, maces and axes and swords and so on. Within the magic system, is it kind of similar? Is it by school that you're perking up, or is it individually, like, I've got fire spells and I'm going to perk the fire spells?
Well, there's the skill destruction, so
Right.
that covers like a category of spells, and then
Right.
within destruction there are perks for fire-based spells.
Right.
So people see, okay, we've removed mysticism, but that's just a label, right? Those spells go into other skills,
Right.
and then it gets deeper within those skills. The easy thing for us, going back to the previous conversation, is to just add more skills. That's actually a lot easier, because in the old games it's just a skill and a number. We didn't feel there was progression. And what we really want is you really feel like you're getting better in this particular skill. And perks are the main way we do that now. And I think the game right now has like 280 perks, if you include the ranks. So it's a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
even a character, sorry to jump in, even a character that raises all of their skills to 100, and they're played and they're like level 50, they've only got to pick 50 perks out of that too. They're very different characters.
Yeah.
And a lot of the power is in the perks, as opposed to the raw number of the skill. There's still some power in the raw number of the skill, just not as much as there used to be. That stuff has moved into the perks.
Got it. That's cool.
What about character creation options? How are races different from one another in this game?
So the main decision you make in the beginning is what race you're going to be, and that comes with, so you no longer pick a class, you basically in the beginning pick what you're going to look like, and obviously the race is a big part of that, and that comes with certain skills increases. So certain races have different skills that are higher to start with, and then they also have either spells, depending on what race you picked, and or racial abilities. And I don't quite want to get into exactly what all those are, but that's how it works.
Sure. But I mean, from what I recall, the big distinction between Skyrim and Oblivion in regards to the character creation stuff is that you just don't have a class when you start out, right?
Correct.
So you're kind of a little bit more of a blank slate. Is that a fair description?
Right. What we found in Oblivion, you start the game, you pick your race, and you play for a while. Our intent was you played for a while, you got to, figure out some skills, and then depending how you played, it was like a half hour, 45 minutes in, one of the characters asks you, okay, what kind of class do you want to be? Here's my recommendation based on how you've been playing. And sort of our thought process was, what if that guy never asked that? I was perfectly happy right before then. I was just playing the game and skills were going up, and so we just got rid of that. You just play, and your skills go up as you play, and the higher your skill, the more it affects your leveling. So it's a really, really nice, elegant system that kind of just self-balances itself. So what we found in Oblivion is people would play, and even though they played for a half hour and then they picked their class, it's still, in the scheme of the games we make, not enough time to really understand all the skills and how they work. So people would play, and the general pattern would be they play for like 3 hours, and then, I picked the wrong skills, I'm going to start over. So we got in this loop of, a lot of the feedback was, I played your game for 3 hours and started over. And they weren't necessarily upset about that, but to us, who, someone is making a game, you're like, is there a way we can solve that? Is there a better way of doing it? And we think this is it.
Yeah. I'm on that topic of like those things that you're picking. You're saying you do get to kind of pick the way that you look. So I know that a bunch of the readers had also asked kind of about that. If I recall, you guys have some pretty robust tools in place this time around to even within a given race and gender to kind of really mess around with the way that you look, right?
Yeah, we're really happy with how that's coming out. It's all new face system we did. And on one hand, you have less control than you had in Oblivion, but what you're doing looks cool.
Yeah.
Our joke was, Oblivion would have been better if we renamed the random button the ugly button on the face creator. Like that's solving it through design.
Right.
Like you just get these kind of doughy. We were trying procedural faces, and some of them are okay, and some of them go horribly wrong. So we've redone that completely, and with really, really nice results. It's something simple like a nose. When you go to make your nose, we have a lot of pre-built shapes you can pick from,
right.
And then you can adjust the size and position of that, as opposed to lots of fiddly sliders. And it just lets us sort of handcraft a lot of options that you can mess with that, if you just start messing around, you're not going to end up with something that looks bad. Do you know what I mean? So all the races look pretty cool and unique.
That's awesome.
And Todd, I read a lot about and heard a lot about the dragon language that you guys created and all that stuff. What are the dragons going to be like in the game? Are there going to be different types? Are they going to be kind of the hardest enemy that you fight? Will you be able to ride them at some point?
Let's see, in order. There are.
What are the dragons like? Is the first question, and it's kind of been a common question throughout the comments we got.
That's a very, very general question, but I can tell you what we're going for is that if you're a fan of fantasy, you see a lot with dragons, and then they've been a part of classic fantasy that we've never done. There was one that appeared in Redguard, but it wasn't done to the level that we would really want to see. And And so we wanted to do them in a way that they were part of the world, and put them on screen and fight them in a way that you conjure up in your head when you read fantasy, that you haven't really seen in a game. And that's what we're trying to pull off, that they are these fierce beasts, that they do become kind of boss fights, like a mix between a Big Daddy and a helicopter in Half-Life 2, and these things that you see coming, like, oh no.